Tonight we examine the case of Kilmar Abrego Garcia, a Salvadoran man whose fight to stay in the U.S. highlights the collision of immigration law, criminal justice and human rights. His story is unique. He faces serious federal charges in the U.S., yet the government seeks to deport him, not to his home country, but to Uganda. Abrego Garcia claims he faces grave danger if sent to either El Salvador or Uganda. The U.S. government, however, sees him as a lawbreaker, indicted for human smuggling. In 2019, an immigration judge denied him asylum but granted withholding of removal, acknowledging the risks he faces in El Salvador. Now, after a brief deportation and return to the U.S. for prosecution, his case is back in the spotlight. The central question: how should the U.S. balance its legal obligations with his claims of potential persecution? His journey is a test of the asylum process and the responsibilities of governments to those seeking refuge. The outcome could set a precedent for future cases at the intersection of crime, immigration, and international law. This week, Abrego Garcia was arrested at an ICE facility shouting "Gobierno corrupto," a sign of his frustration with the system. His legal team quickly filed a motion to reopen his asylum case, arguing that the plan to deport him to Uganda presents new dangers. Earlier this year, he was deported to El Salvador, but the U.S. brought him back to face criminal charges. Attorney General Pam Bondi announced his return, underscoring the seriousness of his alleged crimes. Now he faces a dual battle, defending against federal charges and fighting deportation. His lawyers argue that the new threat of removal to Uganda justifies reopening his case. The government's actions, deportation, return, prosecution, highlight the complexity and stakes of his situation. The court's decision on his motion will determine his immediate future. Abrego Garcia is using the very system prosecuting him as a shield against what he calls certain danger. The next steps in his journey hinge on this legal crossroads. The U.S. government's plan to deport Abrego Garcia to Uganda, not El Salvador, is highly unusual and controversial. Deportees are typically sent to their home countries, but Uganda, a nation with a different language, culture, and human rights record, was chosen for undisclosed reasons. His lawyers argue this new destination was never considered in previous hearings and poses unique risks. They claim sending him to Uganda could violate international and U.S. laws protecting refugees from harm. Abrego Garcia fears persecution in Uganda due to his race, nationality, and political views, grounds protected under asylum law. As a Hispanic man with no ties to Uganda, he believes he would be especially vulnerable. Meanwhile, Costa Rica has reportedly offered to accept him, presenting a possible diplomatic solution. Costa Rica shares his language and culture, making it a safer and more logical destination. His preference for Costa Rica underscores his desire for safety and integration, not isolation. The choice of Uganda versus Costa Rica is now central to his legal and humanitarian fight. At the heart of Abrego Garcia's case is his fear of persecution and torture if deported. He claims past torture in El Salvador and believes returning would be life-threatening. The 2019 court ruling found his fears credible, granting him withholding of removal. Now, the threat of being sent to Uganda introduces new fears: discrimination and violence as a conspicuous minority. His lawyers invoke the principle of non-refoulement, arguing that sending him to Uganda could lead to further deportation to El Salvador. The risk of chain deportation is real and dangerous. Complicating matters, his U.S. criminal charges could be used against him abroad, making him a target. His legal defense rests on proving these dangers are immediate and credible. Abrego Garcia's future is uncertain, caught between criminal prosecution and immigration court. He faces felony charges for allegedly transporting undocumented immigrants, to which he's pleaded not guilty. His asylum motion hinges on whether the Uganda plan represents a fundamental change in his circumstances. If granted, his claim will be reconsidered. If denied, deportation could proceed after his criminal case. The possibility of resettlement in Costa Rica offers hope for a diplomatic solution. Ultimately, his fate depends on two court systems and international negotiations. He could face prison, deportation to Uganda, protection in the U.S., or a new life in Costa Rica. Each outcome carries profound consequences for his life. His case is a stark reminder of the complex intersection between criminal justice and immigration law.